Okay, so first let's start with understanding loops and conditions in today's class. So loops and conditions or conditional statements are two different statements or two different functionalities in Java. So if you notice, like we might be familiar with something called as an if or a for, while or do while, something like this. If you are familiar with programming languages, and many people consider if as a loop. Okay, if is not a loop. If is a conditional statement. The difference between a conditional statement and a loop is a conditional statement executes only once, but a loop executes or iterates multiple number of times. Okay, there's a big difference. So let's start with an example. So in this, I'll start with something called as an if a condition. So now in this if condition, we'll be mainly using or we'll be mainly looking into how we can use an if block, okay, to check certain scenarios. Okay, so here let me say int x equal to 5. Okay, I have assigned some value x equal to 5 there. Now the next thing that I will do here is I will try to write or use an if condition. I say if I'm writing an if block. So it should be like the first thing is if and then followed by brackets, and inside brackets we will write some logic, and after that the body. Okay, so body should be written inside these curly braces. Now if I say inside these brackets I write some logic for comparing. So in Java there are different types of operators like conditional operators, bitwise operators. There are many type of operators which are present in Java. So we will see one by one as and when we progress through the programming. So the first thing that I would like to check here is use a greater than operator, which most of you know. If x is greater than 10, this out, the value is greater than 10. Okay. I just wrote one statement at line number 10 saying that if the value of x is greater than 10, then execute these set of statements which are present inside this body. Here like this you can write as many number of statements you want. Okay, you can write n number of statements. Now if I execute this statement will be executed, and if the condition which is written inside this if block is true, then only line number 11 and line number 12 are executed. If not, these statements will never be executed. Now in this scenario, will the expression x greater than 10, will it be true or false, everyone? Okay, that's good. The statement would, the output would be false. Since it is false, the next question, will it execute line number 10 and 11 or not? Very good. It will not execute. So let me just run it. So once I run it, there is no output which is displayed. So let me just write this out here. This out. End of main. So I do this. End of main method is being printed, but nothing else is being printed. Why? Because the condition at line number 9 is false. Since it is false, it will not go inside. If suppose if I make changes here 55, and at this point I would like to show you, every one of you, how to debug a program. Debugging is one of the most important things that you need to know. Why? Because that is how you can analyze in a real-time scenario. Yeah, that's what I'm going to explain, Praveen. So when I say debug, with the help of debug, you will, in real-time scenario, you will try to understand how exactly you can identify an issue in your program. If suppose you have written some 100 lines of code, and when you're trying to run a program, if suppose if at some line, at some random line, it is causing some exception. If you're not aware of at what line it is throwing an exception, then you can start the program in debug mode, execute the program line by line, and then identify where exactly things are going wrong. Okay, so for debugging the program, what I will do is, see, under this J, okay, just beside this line number. And yeah, one more feature just I want to tell everyone is, always make sure that you enable line numbers in your class, in your .java file. To enable line numbers, all you need to do is, anywhere under this J, just right click and say show line numbers. If you enable this option, it will show line numbers for you. Okay, the next thing here is to debug. In order to debugging means trying to stop the runtime environment wherever you want and executing the program step by step. Now, if I go ahead and execute it, or if I just run the program, you will never know like how the program is running. Means you will never have a control, or you cannot stop it wherever you want, right? Now, if I want to stop it, what I can do is I can just, here I'll just double click. If I just double click, there is a breakpoint which is being shown there. Okay, so either I can do that, or I can right click here again and I say toggle breakpoint. See, a breakpoint comes. If I double click on this again, the breakpoint will be gone. So I hope everyone understood like how to place a breakpoint in your program. We will see what will happen when we place a breakpoint later. Okay, first, to enable or to disable a breakpoint, I hope it is clear to everyone. So let me add a breakpoint in my program. So why I add a breakpoint is to stop the program execution at that point. So now, instead of running the program, if I go ahead and run the program, it doesn't make any difference. It goes ahead and runs in the regular way. But once I place a breakpoint, I will not run the program. I will debug the program. When I say debug, I can say right click on this program, and instead of selecting run as, instead of selecting this option run as Java application, instead of this I can select debug as Java application. I can select this debug option, or I can straight away select this bug symbol that you see here, which shows debug if condition program. Okay, so either I can select this. So once I click on this one, notice here team, it shows like it wants to open a different perspective. Now if you notice here on the top right hand side corner, either we can, in the current scenario it is in Java perspective, either you can be in Java perspective or Java EE perspective. Now it says that, hey, you are trying to debug a program. Now instead of showing in a Java perspective, I want to shift it to debug perspective. That is what it says. So this perspective is nothing but, you can think of a specific layout. So in this Java layout, here you see a package explorer, and this is the place where you write the code, and a task list and outline. This is what you see. If I say remember my decision, means what I suggest every one of you to do is, like, always go to the debug mode whenever you try to debug the program. Say yes. Okay, so once you say yes, the layout slightly changes. So it shows a debug, something like debug here, and variables, breakpoints, outline, all this. slightly it changes. Now, when I go to the breakpoints, it shows in my project what are all the places where I kept breakpoints. It shows that okay, there is only one breakpoint in a program called if condition at line number 7. That is where the breakpoint is present. That is what it shows. Now if I go to variables, it shows like what are all the variables that are present in your current program. And here in the debug mode, it shows like that the breakpoint is at line number 7 and the current execution of the program has stopped at line number 7. Notice here team, in the previous scenario when you run the program, it directly goes ahead and executes everything and prints the output in the console. But here it is not executing everything. It just stopped, or it is waiting for your signal to go ahead at this point. So the JVM has stopped at line number 7. So int x equal to 55. Now to go to the next line, the shortcut is F6 on your keyboard, or you can select this option, step over, which is nothing but F6. Okay, so I click on this one. So once I click on this one, the control goes from line number 7 to line number 9. So the next thing that I want every one of you to notice here is, as and when the line number 7 execution is completed, under this variables tab, there will be a new variable which you can see called x. What it shows is, it shows that okay, in this program a new local variable is created called x, and that is what will be shown here. Okay, so let me just click F6 only once. If I click once, the execution has went to the next line and x equal to 55. Notice here this line number 7 is executed and it is shown here x as 55. This is one of the variables which is present in the current application or in your current program. Now the next thing is x greater than 10. Is x greater than 10? What is x? X is 55. Is 55 greater than 10? True, it is true. So I say F6 again only once. It went to the next line. Why? Because the if condition is true. Since it is true, it went inside the if condition and it executes line number 10 and line number 11 for you. Again one more F6. So line number 10 and 11 are executed. Then the if condition is completed. So it comes to line number 14. So as and when I do the next line, it executes this one and comes out of that. So finally what I do is I do F8 to complete that execution. Okay, so I do F8. So everything is completed. So ideally what happens is, if there are multiple breakpoints, like one breakpoint at line number 1, one breakpoint at line number 120. So if you keep on pressing F8, it will jump from one breakpoint to other breakpoint. If not, if there are no more breakpoints, it will complete the execution of the program. Okay, so there are two things that I try to explain here in this context. The first one is how to write an if condition, and the second one is how to debug a program. And the third one that I want to show here is, when you try to debug a program, you use an option called this bug symbol and click on the debug, and it debugs the program or stops wherever you place a breakpoint. And to go to the next line, you say F6 F6 every time, and you are in a debug perspective. The perspective is nothing but it's a kind of a layout. Okay, now if you want to go back to your regular layout, all you need to do is on the top right hand side corner, you are in debug mode. This is selected, so go back to Java mode. If you go back to Java mode, see, you are back to your regular workspace layout. Okay, so all these things, three things, is it clear, or still any questions for anyone? String of 0 at line number 16. Okay, so one second, let me take first question. What is the meaning of string of 0 id 16? uh Sorry, where is that, Praveen? I did not get you. Okay, okay, let me let me do that. So what is the use of debug mode? So the debug mode is like, as I said already, let us assume that you have written 100 lines of code. And in 100 lines of code, when you are trying to run a program, you are not getting an expected output. It is kicking you out from the program saying that, hey, there is some issue in the program. So that you will see or you will understand more in exception handling. So in that scenario, out of those 100 lines, if you want to identify which line throws an error, so start debugging from line 1, and as and when you encounter, example, as and when you encounter line number 12, after line number 12, if the program is exiting, then you can identify, okay, because of line number 12, there is some issue in the program, so it is kicking out. Let me go ahead and inspect what I have written at line number 12 and go back and fix that issue. That is what you can think, look for. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Like, I hope a couple of people ask what is the use of debugging. Okay, and let me take the other question, like if I debug the program again, the program will stop at the breakpoint. So some of you have asked, why is the program stopping at line number 7? Why? Because that is where I placed a breakpoint. Okay, so that is why it stopped at line number 7. Oh, string of 0. It's like in the arguments. So args is nothing but the arguments which is present or which is an input to the main method. Since we are not passing any input to this arguments, means in general what you can do is, to a Java program, to this main method you can pass in some input arguments. But since we are not passing any input arguments, it is showing the size as 0. I guess this ID 16 is some random ID that it is trying to assign. Okay, internally it might be assigning IDs to each and every variable or some methods or whatever. Means I'm not so sure of why this ID is equal to 16, but that's what my understanding is, like it is a unique ID that is being assigned to this one. But string of 0 means, since it's like there is nothing else or none of the arguments are given to it, so it shows string of 0. Okay, yeah. So okay, okay. So if you want me to do an if I want you to if you want me to do an intentional mistake, I will say x by 0. Okay, sorry, not here. Okay, so I run the program. When I run the program, you expect an output that since 55 is greater than 10, you expect these two statements to be printed and this statement also to be printed. That is what you expect, but nothing is being printed in the console. Then you might get confused, hey, what is happening in this scenario? Why line number 11, 12 and 15 are not being printed? So since you are unaware of, see, let us assume that you don't understand all this stuff. Okay, whatever is being printed, you don't understand all this stuff. So you want to think like what is happening in the background. So then you will go think that, okay, let me go ahead and debug the program and see at what line the program is causing or program is breaking out. So you place a breakpoint at line number 7 and then you click on debug. So once you click on debug, it it stops at line number 7. Then you say F6. Okay, it went to line number 9. Everything is good. Then it went to line number 10. Everything is good. Then if you do this, it did not go to line number 11 or the next line, it did not go. It jumped out of the program. Why? Because there is some issue. Then you can understand, oh, okay, I think there is something wrong at line number 10. Oh, okay. Instead of dividing by 10, maybe I made a mistake by dividing by 0. Okay, so I make it by 10 or whatever. I make some code changes in order to make sure that line number 10 executes fine. And now if I go back and run my program, I get the output as I expected. Okay, clear? Like why you do a debug or how you do a debug and how you can resolve an issue when you debug. When you debug.
So is debug for just an error, or like you just do it every time? It's kind of like a unit test, or
Yeah, that's what. So I'm running the program. Do you want to do debug in this scenario?
for this particular one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. So in which scenario you think you might use a debug?
I'm not sure. Whenever it's giving me that error, or whenever the program is not running.
Exactly. So whenever you want to take a control of the flow, let us assume that someone has given a piece of code where class 1 calls class 2, class 2 calls class 3, class 3 calls class 4, class 4 calls class 35, class 35 calls class 75. From there, again the flow is coming back to you. So if you want to understand the flow, how the flow is happening internally, then you can place a debug point, go line by line. Okay, where is the code going? Where is the code going? Where is the code going? That you can understand a code flow by taking a control, going step by step. Or if there are any issues in the program, saying that in the previous scenario you had an issue, right? So you understood that issue only when you try to debug and understand the entire flow, right? So in those scenarios, so whenever you feel like trying to debugging is basically trying to take control of the execution and trying to understand the program or trying to resolve some issues in the program or whatever. Clear?
Yeah. Yes. So like, when you're creating like object and calling from like different class, does it
Mhm.
work the same way, or?
Okay, so debug is nothing to do with any of the Java programming, like means it will never ever change any of the features in Java. But all it does is when I click run, it means it's like a green symbol at a signal, which means you will not stop, you will just go away like that. But if it is a blinking flash red symbol, what you will do, you will go, stop, you will look around and then you will proceed, which means in both the scenarios you are passing that signal light, but in one scenario you will never stop, but in other scenario you will stop, look and go. That's the same symbol. If I'm using this run, this is like a green light. You will not stop for any, the JVM will not stop for anyone. It will just go ahead and execute the program. But if you're debugging, it means you are telling the JVM, hey, there is a red light that I'm trying to put at line number 7. So go ahead and stop at that light. That's what you are telling. Okay, clear?
Okay, so it's more like a yellow signal.
Yeah, maybe whatever like, but it's like not a green light. Okay, stop, look ahead and proceed.
I got
As simple as that. Okay, very good. Now, I hope most of you understood what exactly is debug mode and how to debug. Okay. So also, I guess like most of you, everyone has understood what is an if condition. Is that clear? If condition to everyone. So now let me just extend this if condition to the next level. So here at line number 9, what I did is I tried to create an if condition which will execute once and it will see if this condition validates to true, it will execute these statements. Now I want to write more scenarios, something like if x greater than 10, then execute some statements, some set of statements, else, understand the scenario here, else sysout which means if this statement is true, execute this, else if that is not true, execute this. So in this scenario, in this if else block, only one will be executed at any point of time. Okay, which means if an if condition is true, then else will not be executed. If else is if the if condition is false, then else will be executed. See, let me see, there are no issues in the program, but still I will debug the program and I will explain you the flow. So as I said earlier, if you want to understand the flow of the program, also how it is going, then you can use a debug point, you can place a debug point and then start understanding the program flow. So let me stop the program at line number 15. So for now, what I do is I say no in this debug perspective, but every time, since you are just starting the learning stage in this debugging and all, always say yes. Okay, never ever say no. Okay, but for time being I'm saying no. So in this scenario, x greater than 10, I'm saying if x is greater than 10, execute this. So that is true. So it executes line number 16. Since it has executed line number 16, it will never execute anything else in the else block. So this will not, the highlighted part or line number 18 will never be executed. It will straight away jump to line number 23. Okay, so after that, after executing or after completing line number 17, it jumps to line number 23. Now if I say x as 5 and if I debug it once again, is if x greater than 10, is x greater than 10? The answer is no. Since x is not greater than 10, it will not execute line number 16, rather it will go ahead and execute the else block. Okay, so since that statement is false, line number 15 is false, it comes to else block, executes 2222 and then executes line number 23. Okay, clear with this scenario to everyone? If else scenario. Okay, yeah, that's good. Now taking this to a next level, one more step ahead. Here I would like to check multiple conditions. Okay, so if x equal to, okay, equal to is an operation where you try to check some condition. It is a conditional operator. Okay, if x equal to 1, then I say this out something like 1. See here, else space if, again one more if condition I'm writing, but it is called as else if x equal to 2, this out 2, else if, you can write as many if blocks as possible. Okay, so if x equal to 3, this out 3. If none of the cases match, then I can finally write else block and say this out x greater than 3, some value I'm writing. Okay, or I can say x means it can be negative number also, so let me say not 1 2 3. Okay, so that's what I write. So what is that I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to do multiple checks here. So let me put a breakpoint here at line number 22 and let me debug here. So is x equal to 1? No, x is not equal to 1. Since x is not equal to 1, it will not execute line number 23, and then it checks x equal to 2, false, x equal to 3, false. So it comes to the else block and executes the else block. Okay, so it prints not 1 2 and 3 and again prints the last statement, end of main method. So what is that I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to check, or I'm trying to do multiple if conditions. So either if else means if you see the scenario team, things are very easy. They are simple, straight English language kind of statements. If true, then execute these statements. If this is true, execute this, else execute this. Here, if this is true, execute this, else. If this is true, then execute this, else. If this is true, then execute this, else do this. Like that, simple statements. Clear till this point? Okay, awesome. Now taking this to the next level. Okay, if I say x equal to 1, that's fine. This is the scenario which we already know. And now what I am trying to do here is I am trying to add more statements into one single if block. Okay, 1 second. Before I explain this, let me take one more question. So what's your question? Your question is, in this program, can I give x equal to 1, 2, 3? So Sheikh, the first thing is we cannot assign 1, 2, 3. We cannot do like this. Giving the value like this is wrong. So either it can be one at a time. Either it can be x equal to 1 or x equal to 2, something like that. Okay. So if x equal to 1, this will be printed. If x equal to 2, this will be printed. If x equal to 3, this will be printed. If not, the else block will be printed. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Now here in this example, we are taking this if block to the next level, saying that if x equal to 1, or see, I'm using some conditional or operators and operators and not operators. There are different kinds of operators in Java. So I'm checking if x equal to 1 or x equal to 5, then this out some value. Else if x equal to 2 or x equal to 7 or x equal to 9, means any number of operators that you can write there. This out b, else this out. See, I want every one of you to try this example. So now here I say x equal to 5. This is what I say at line number 32. Because of line number 32, tell me what is the output for these three highlighted statements in this if condition. Very good. The answer is A. Why? Because the condition x equal to 5 is true. So at line number 34, observe very carefully. What I wrote is x equal to 1 or x equal to true. So maybe you might have studied something like truth tables in your school days or your college days, where in the truth table it shows like if you are trying to compare two things which are true, then the condition is true. Means compare means or operator, using an or operator. Or operator condition is always true if either one of the values is true. If both are false, then only it will be false. Okay. So based on that, since this condition returns true, it will print A for you. Okay. Now the same statement, see how I'm trying to modify. Instead of or, I'm trying to write and operator. Ampersand, that is nothing but an and operator in that. So now tell me the same thing. Tell me the output for x equal to 5 for line numbers 34 to 40. Very good. The output would be CCCC. So let me execute this. So if you notice here, CCCC will be printed. Why? Because even though x equal to 5 is true, even though this highlighted part x equal to 5 is true, x equal to 1 fails. Because that is failing, this AND operator will say false and true is always false. So it will execute false. Or if suppose if the first statement if the first condition is false, the AND operator will never check about the second operator. Okay. So since this is false, it will not execute this, it will not execute this, it just prints CCC. In the same way, if this is OR, I just want to execute and show the output. Instead of CCCC, it will print AAAA for you because of this OR operator in this condition. Okay. So like that you can use different types of operators in Java. So you can say if x equal to 2, then write some do some operation, anything, or you can do that. Or if x not equal to true, okay, not equal to 2. So in the previous scenario it is equal to, that's what we are looking into. Now this is not equal to operator. Okay. And or if you can say x greater than or equal to 2, then do some operation. If x less than or equal to 2, do some operation. Like this you can use different combinations of operators in if condition. Okay. So if can be written either like an only an if condition, or an if and else condition, or an if else group. Like this you can write if in various combinations. Any doubts? Okay, that's good. So the next thing that we do here is we will look into the next example of the loops. We'll start with understanding a for loop. Okay. So in the for, I said it is a loop. For is not a condition. Loop means you can iterate or you can execute a sequence of steps for specified number of times. Okay, executing a sequence of steps for specified number of times. Okay, now I will try to write a main method. See, always remember that why I am writing a main method. Why? Because if you want to run a program, you must have a main method in that program. Okay. So there are other ways, like even without main we can do, but let's not think of those scenarios. The standard scenario is to execute a program in Java, you need to have a main method. Okay. So under main, I will write all my logic. So in this, I'm writing a for loop. Okay. Now the syntax is very easy. So understand the syntax. So it is first the keyword called for, then open bracket, close bracket, and the method body will be written in that curly braces. Okay, whatever code you want to write is written in between these curly braces. Now what do you write in this highlighted part? Okay, in that brackets what do you write? We will write certain conditions and statements which will make the execution for certain number of times that we specify. So what exactly is that? So again, to give an outline or to give a high level understanding, let us see the skeleton how it looks like. And whatever for loop that I'm explaining, it can be written in n number of ways, and this is the standard syntax in general we follow. The first thing is, inside that, first initialize. Okay, first you initialize, semicolon, then you write a condition, and then semicolon, and then you write an operation. Operation can be like an increment operator or a decrement operator basically. Okay, now the same structure skeleton we'll try to see with a simple example. For initialization, how do I initialize a variable? I say int x equal to 3. Okay, I initialize it, and then semicolon, then condition. What is the condition that I want to say? Let us assume that I want to execute this for loop for 5 times. So since I want to execute for 5 times, so from 3, if I want to execute for 5 times, say 3 till 8. So I say x greater than or equal to, sorry, if x less than or equal to 8, then only execute this semicolon, and then I say the operation is x plus plus. Okay, so before I execute this for loop, let me show a simple example of what is x plus plus or plus plus x. So it is called as pre-increment or post-increment, and also shorthand notation. So we might look into an example like int y equal to 5. Okay, y equal to y plus 1. So whatever I have written at line number 14 is nothing but incrementing the value of y by 1. So Java says that, hey, instead of doing y equal to y plus 1, you can use a shorthand notation like y plus plus or plus plus y. Either of these statements, either line number 15 or line number 16. Any of these two statements are valid statements which is equivalent to line number 14. But what is the difference between y plus plus and plus plus y? Y plus plus is called as post increment and plus plus y is called as pre increment. Okay, so if you want to see an example, let's see something like this. Int z equal to 10, then I say sys out z equal to plus plus z. So plus plus means, if you write plus plus first, it means pre increment. So now if I execute this, the output would be, the output for a z would be 11. Okay, so 11. Now I will explain this once again. If I do the same thing like z plus plus and execute this, the output is still 10. But now if I write one more statement, print the value of z, then it would be 10 and 11. Why? Why? Because the difference is post increment means execute an operation, then increment the value. So what is the operation that you are trying to do? Print the value inside this print statement. So first the operation is executed, which means printing the value of z will be done, which is nothing but 10. After that line number 19 is executed, then the value of z will be incremented from 10 to 11. Okay, that is the reason why in the next statement you see the z value as 11. But if I say plus plus z, it means increment the value of z before the functionality is executed. So what is the functionality that you are trying to do? Print the value of z in a print statement. So before the value of z is printed, before that increment it, so z will become 11 and then it will be printed. So now in this example, if I execute, instead of 10 and 11, it will print 11 and 11 for me. Notice 11 and 11 is printed. Clear with post and pre increments? Okay, yeah. So let's go back to this for loop. So in the for loop, what is the first thing? Initialize, then condition, then operation. So here I say, just maybe for timing, for your understanding purpose, I say sys out. Yeah, if you want to increase more than one value, you can increase saying that y equal to y plus 5 or y plus 6. But it's just for incrementing one value, the plus plus operator is used. Okay, the value of x is, okay. So I will debug this program and I will explain you the scenario. Very simple. Just notice, observe here. Yeah, and for an see, the concept here is Java says that if you want to increase one value, then use this pre-increment and post-increment. If you want to increase the value by 50, then say y equal to y plus 50. If you want to increase by 100, y equal to y plus 100. That is what you say. That's what Java says. Clear? And line number 15 and 16 is generally called as a shorthand notation of line number 14. Okay. Yeah, now going back to line number 10, so I'm just trying to print the value of x. Now let me put a breakpoint at line number 9, debug it. So in the debug mode, now once I execute this, see here, x equal to 3, the value of x has become 3. Now it checks 3 is less than or equal to 8 or not. Is 3 less than or equal to 8? Yes, 3 is less than or equal to 8, which means the condition is true. Since the condition is true, it comes inside, okay? It comes inside and then prints the value of x to 3. So see here, if I say F6, it prints 3 and then it again goes to the for loop, which means what is happening? I am trying to iterate a certain set of statements for multiple number of times. If this is the same condition with if condition, if will never ever come back to the initial state and it will never compare again. It will just execute once and it will go out. Okay, but here it came back. Now understand here, what is the value of x? X value is 3. Is 3 less than 8? Yes, true. So it went ahead and executed this. Now the next thing is, as soon as I press F6, okay, F6, the next thing which happens is the value of x will be incremented to 4 and then it checks is 4 less than or equal to 8 or not. That is what it happens. Now everyone understand, look at this place. Okay, x value is 3. Now see, as and when I press F6, the value of 3 will be modified to 4. See here, did you notice, did everyone notice the value of x is changed to 4? Is 4 less than or equal to 8? Yes, 4 is less than or equal to 8. So it prints the value of x. So 4. Now if 4 as and when I press F6, the 4 becomes 5. Okay. So 5 less than right, true. Then 6 less than right, true. Then 7 less than right, true. Then 8 less than or 8, true. Okay. So it came inside 8 less than or equal to 8. So it came inside. Now it went ahead. Now then as and when I press this one, means ideally you cannot see that, as and when I press this one, the x value will be internally compared and it incremented and x becomes 9. Is 9 less than or equal to 8? The condition is false. Since it is false, it comes out of the for loop and goes to line number 13. See, when I press F6, it goes to line number 13. Okay, x is gone. Why x is gone? Because the scope of x is only inside this for loop. The for loop has ended at line number 11. So since for loop is gone, the local variable scope is also gone and now we are at line number 13. Okay, but I hope, means I'm not trying to explain anything after line number 13, 14 and all. That's a different scenario. So all I want to explain here is how a for loop is working. Okay, so I complete the scenario. So the output is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So I'm able to execute a set of statements for n number of times. Okay, is that concept clear to everyone? Okay, yeah team, I'll just take 10 more minutes and I will just complete the concepts. Like there is one more concept, I'll just complete it. Okay, so now coming back to Java mode. So the next question to everyone, see, observe, understand my question. In the current example, the output that I am trying to print is 3 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the question is, I want to print the output as 17, 16, 15 and 14. This is the output that I want to print. Tell me how exactly your for loop will look like. Decrement, yeah, that's correct. Okay, but what is the for loop? For loop can tell the entire syntax. X equal to 17 is true. Is X greater than or equal to 14? See, when I say X greater than or equal to 14, it says yes, 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 and it keeps on decrementing. And as and when it encounters 14, and if it decrements one value, it becomes 13. Is 13 greater than or equal to 14? No, it is not, so it fails. So this is the syntax. So very good for those of you who all wrote this syntax. Okay, so for X, so without, okay, I hope everyone understood. 17, 16, 15 and 14, that is what is being printed here. Okay, clear with for loop? Yeah, very good team. So the next thing that I will explain here is a while loop. Okay, and also do while loop. These are the two things we will explain. And to understand while and do while, they are exactly similar to the for loop, but slightly different. So before I explain for loop, while loop, just understand the skeleton. For initialize, condition, operation, then body, right? So let me take this skeleton and explain while loop, and you will notice like how easy it is to understand while loop also. So main method, I'm just writing the for loop as a reference here. So while loop, how you write is, first you write initialization statement, you write, then the keyword called while, and then you will write the condition, and then you will write the body. Inside the body you will write n number of statements, and along with n number of statements, the most important thing that you need to do is the operation, the increment or decrement operation. That is what you need to write. If you don't write this, if you forget to write this, and if this condition is true, this becomes an infinite while loop. Okay, so you need to take extra precaution to make sure that you write this without fail, like a plus plus or minus minus. Okay, so now what I say is int x equal to 3. I've initialized, then while is a keyword, then I say while x greater than 10, or sorry, while x less than 10, this out, the value of x is x, I say, and without fail, all we need to do is we need to write either an increment or a decrement operator. Here I am trying to increment x plus plus. Okay, so now if I go ahead and run this, did you notice like it executed from line 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So initially it is 3. Is 3 less than 10? True. Then print it, then increment it, then print it, check it, print it, increment it, check it, print it, increment it. And as and when the value of x becomes 10, is 10 less than 10? No. So it exits out of it. This is how a while loop is written. Is it clear? The while loop? Okay, very good. The next thing and the last thing is do while. Do while loop demo. In this, the same old scenario like how you did it, initialize, while, all these things. But the specific difference here is, let me write the specific syntax and then you will understand. Int x equal to 5, then I say do, okay, this out, the value of x is, then x plus plus or x minus minus, whatever you want to do, and while I say x less than, or I say x greater than, whatever, and a semicolon. This is must and should. In none of the scenarios in general you write a semicolon, but here you will write a semicolon at the end of do while loop. Okay, so now in this scenario what happens is, so if I execute this one, it executes only once. Okay, the value of x is 5, which means it executed only once. If I make it x less than 10, it executes like 5 times and exits out. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It executed 5 times, it exits out. So now understand what is the biggest difference between while loop and a do while loop. While loop, it executes 0 times if the condition fails. But do while loop, for sure it executes once even if this condition fails or even if this condition passes. So if suppose if there is a scenario in your project which says that, hey, I will be sending you some input, process that input. First what you need to do is process that input, then you check some condition, and if that condition is true, then keep on processing the data. That if that is the requirement, you go with do while loop. Why? Because for the first time you should not check the condition, you need to process the data. But if the business requirement says that no, first check the condition, then only process the data if the condition is valid, then in that scenario you will go for a while loop. Okay, so while and do while are both similar, like similar kind of things, but in a do while you will check the condition at the last. In while loop you will check the condition at the first, and in while you will execute all the body only if the condition returns true. In do while you will execute the body at least once, and if the while condition returns true, then you keep on executing the statements. If not, you will exit from the do while loop. That's the difference. Is that clear to everyone? Like the difference between while and do while, and everything like for, if condition, for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Any doubts or any questions till this point? Okay. See, what is that do while doing? Let me put a breakpoint here at line number 7 and execute it, debug it. So at line number 7, x equal to 5. So x equal to 5, then it came to do. There is, are we checking any condition? till line number 13, no, we are not checking any condition. So it will execute line number 11, then it will say x plus plus. So x value will be incremented by 1. If you inspect the value of x, x value became 6, x is no longer 5. Now is 6 greater than 10? The condition is false. Since the condition is false, it will break out of this program and it will never execute any other statement. X value is 5 only. Now I want to show you other scenario, x less than 10. Okay, so in this scenario, x is 5, then it executed once, then x value 6 less than 10. Yes, it is true. It executes the do condition again, then it prints that 6, 7, 8. So the value of x is incremented. Now x became 10. Is 10 less than 10? No, it is not. Which means it exits from that do while loop. Okay, it exits. Now all you need to understand is the execution is same, but the place where you check the condition in a while and do while differs. Okay, that is the only scenario. Clear? Okay. That's good. So any doubts or any questions in today's class, team, before we wind up? Okay. So then the homework would be like try to just come update your documents and also just prepare these programs like the while, do while and all these things. If you write these programs and if you execute them, then this will help you in understanding or writing the programs, or you will get used to creating some programs, trying to resolve any issues or any errors. Why? Because sometimes when you write programs, you encounter some problems. Sometimes you might forget this semicolon at the end. It might cause an exception and it might throw an exception and it might say that hey, something is wrong. Then you can understand, put a semicolon here. And the other scenario here is you might go ahead and put a semicolon at the end of while loop. Okay, so if you put this, it becomes an infinite loop again. The same is the case with for loop also. If you put that, it's something like other statements will not be executed. So try to execute these kind of statements and scenarios and try to understand how the programs go. If you don't understand how the program flow is going, put a breakpoint at some location and try to execute the program line by line and understand how the control is going. Okay, so that's what the homework for today. So I'm just stopping the recording.